this next conversation, going to have Kabir join me. And actually, Kabir and I have been spending a lot of time together lately, it feels like. So this is good. And it's timely as well. So Kabir, thank you for taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy, sought-after man, especially on the topic that we're going to talk about. But if you don't mind, introduce yourself. I think your background is extremely unique. And then we'll jump into actually the conversation around here around decentralized identity, and then also biometrics a bit, and then also the foundation that you have. So if you don't mind.
So my name is Kabir. I am CEO and co-founder at Passbolt. We are a self-sovereign identity company focused exclusively on the security industry. In my background, I worked in the automotive industry first, so did access control for vehicles effectively. And we designed, I led the team that designed keyless entry in cars, where you touch the vehicle handle on lock, push a button to start. So basically passive entry systems is what we call them. We were able to scale it to up to 120 million vehicles globally. And then I spun off from that big company to create Passbolt. And now we approach it first with a Web 2 strategy, and then move down to Web 3. I contributed at MIT for the standard development for SSI, which is self-sovereign identity / decentralized ID, and never looked back. So now we're just really fully focused on a Web 3 approach to the problem, as opposed to the Web 2 paradigm that we started out with.
Absolutely. So. All right, so we use a bunch of words that didn't have a lot. People got different perceptions of it. I know what they are, and some people do. But if we're going to talk about self-sovereign identity and decentralized identity. You said slash, so they're kind of one and the same in a lot of ways. But what is self-sovereign identity?
Yeah, so to really better understand self-sovereign identity, we have to think about what the alternative is, which is the current paradigm, right? So centralized identity. Centralized identity wasn't necessary because in any network communication, you have to know who you're talking to, right? Just think of we'll use access control as an example. Think of any access control solution, right? You can't really issue a credential to, an entity you don't know. Generally, you issue it to a known quantity. The problem is the individuals are issuing credentials to don't exist digitally. They exist in the physical world. So what you typically do is onboard them onto your platform, and you've got a registration form or some kind of form that they fill out. You generate an account number and user ID, and you tie it to that PII or personal information that you collected, and you call it a quick file if you will, and you issue a credential against it, right? The problem with this approach, of course, means that you're creating massive stores of people's PII. That is true for just about really any interaction with any service provider. So long as any kind of digital interface is integrated in that interaction, to have trust, you need identity. What that means is you're collecting data, you're issuing identities to them, and people are basically ending up with thousands of digital identities. You can buy a smart light switch to those. You need to create a digital identity with that ecosystem to be able to operate it, right? And so on and so forth. Self-sovereign identity is a completely different approach to identity. A completely different approach to how we do digital identity, which is you flip the paradigm. So you say, instead of service providers issuing digital identities to individuals, what if individuals can exist differently on their own, meaning they're self-sovereign, right? They get a digital identity that they own and that they can control. Now, service providers like access control solutions, or let's say an issuer technically would be, say, Pfizer, that runs a PAC solution from one of the vendors at this conference, wants to be able to issue a credential, they can do it against that digital identity. So to put it in simple terms, I, Kabir, can have a decentralized ID, but I control. It's basically considered that a user ID or an account number, but on steroids, right? And I've got my PII stored myself in my device and on my node, marked up online, so it's got high availability. When someone wants to onboard me to give me access to a credential, like a patch solution, they send me a consent request. Hey, I need access to this PII, and I just consent. Instant onboarding, done. And they say, here's a credential against that identity. You can present it to any of our devices. When you get there, you're able to verify yourself. It just completely streamlines onboarding and the way we're able to deliver security solutions.
So when you say decentralized, it's like, where is it? Because I think that's a question I get when we talk about it. It's like, okay, so it's not centralized on a system specifically, but it's somewhere. So where is that centralized identity living then?
That's a really good question. So once again, I'll just draw this time a really quick contrast. So in the centralized model, these profiles, if you will, so these identities, these digital identities live in a server, in a database somewhat. So you could have companies that end up with 100 million records, right? And that's a high value target that gets breached. It's a security flaw. There's privacy concerns because people's data are being stored oftentimes without their consent. In a decentralized system, what it means is each individual gets to store their own data, which means the service provider does not sit on 100 million records, right? So that bad actor that breached the centralized model and got 100 million records can't really do the same approach with a decentralized system. Instead, they'd have to breach every individual user independently using different cryptography to achieve the same outcome, right? So the bar is much higher. In terms of privacy, when you let the users store their own information, they get it in a decentralized fashion. They have say over who has access to their information. There's that consent action, right? To onboard them, you're seeking consent. So you get consent, it's by default, which many laws, existing and upcoming laws, are mandated to begin with.
Gotcha. So, should be inspected. How some the other question I get a lot with is like, God, dude, this is kind of like biometrics in a way, but so how is it different, at the same or related to decentralized identity?
Yeah, so decentralized identity is, the concept really refers to the identifier itself, which is just some pseudo-anonymous random number that you generate in whatever device you get set up with, that you own and control, but then you can attach credentials to it. Biometrics could be a form of credential that's attached. For example, this identifier looks like this to my face, right? My face template could be signed by ZK Tepper or someone else and added to my identity wallet, for lack of a better expression. And that identity wallet now has a way to prove to any access control system what my identifier looks like. So when you, the employer, say, hey, he has access to all of these spaces, you don't have to collect my biometric and persistently store it. I just get a signed verifiable credential from you that just says, this is what that identifier looks like, and it's allowed access to these spaces. So when I show up, any one of these readers in this room, any one of these scanners that can scan my face and collect my face, collect the credential, do one-to-one matching all offline, and verify beyond reasonable doubt, so with mathematical certainty effectively, that I am who I say I am and that I have access to the space.
Right. So, last question, because this is a much deeper conversation. What verticals are you seeing? Because this is not sort of this mythical beast that nobody's using yet, and we're going to. There's actually applications are happening today. So what applications are you seeing right now implementing decentralized identity, self-sovereign identity?
Yeah, so China is a big one. Travel means high frequency, the use of identity and credentials all at the same time, right? I need to check in, which is essentially prove that I am who I say I am, to hotels, rental cars, attractions, and so on. And at the same time, they issue credentials to me to access the spaces of, like a vehicle or a hotel room or attraction space. That's a really hot space for SSI. One more is, government identity. Is a really big one. Digital ID. Digital ID is huge. Many governments are moving in that direction. The EU, for example, has mandated the use of SSI for digital ID. So by 2026, every European citizen will have an identity wallet that's SSI based. And if you're a vendor, that means you can issue credentials against those identities as well. So you can instantly onboard those users without needing to create a user-facing app or a user-facing solution, and you're able to send credentials against those identities. You're able to leverage the biometrics captured and signed by those government entities saying, this is what they're supposed to look like. So when you provide access to an identity, when they show up at the door, you're able to, without even needing to store their biometric data, scan and verify that they are who they say they are biometrically. How to end with just this, right? So just my absolute favorite use case is, to drive home the value of decentralized ID and biometrics is, just imagine being able to walk up to a gate, let's say one of these gates, that has a camera in front of it, right? And able to capture your face, it's able to maybe use a UWB or some, transport protocol, pull a verifiable credential, what you're supposed to look like, authenticate you one-to-one, and noise it to you. So by the time you get to that gate, you're a known quantity. One, two, they've already authenticated that you have access to the space, and the gate just opens and you pass right through. Absolutely seamless, right? That is just the cleanest way you let the good guys in and keep the bad guys out, right? But with SSI, you're doing this without ever creating a massive cache of people's biometric templates, which is a major security risk and a legal risk. If you think of privacy laws and biometric laws like DFOC. So just wanted to at least hand on that note.
No, please do it. I'm thrilled that you did that, and I want to say, like, I believe this is going to be a classic case of you're going to be right with a lot of this, and it's a case of when, not if, on that end. And if people want to find out more information, they can go to nfid.org. The foundation. The trees. Say it again, server.
NFID.foundation.
NFID.foundation. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Kabir.
Thank you, Nathan.